Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rules world. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of the video is America is in a desperate situation. Right? Ultimately, this Iran war has crippled America, and it's just the beginning for America. Right? This war is going to spiral into World War III, which some say, that they are already in World War III. Really the major powers are fighting. Russia and China are helping Iran. Russia's in a war with Ukraine. You have America helping Israel. Israel's in a war with Iran, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Yemen, the Gaza, the Palestinians, probably Syria. They want to attack Turkey. So America is helping them, and major players are, fighting. NATO is helping Ukraine, about to be at war with Russia, but ultimately, America is going to be destroyed right along with Israel, right? The Senate or the Congress just passed the bill basically merging Israel and America army together, whether they share, information about weapons or they go boots on the ground together, whatever the case may be, they have been merged. I believe it has to go to like the Senate to get approved or whatever the case may be. But America is bought out by Israel, right? Israel controls America. That's evident. But again, the Most High allowed that to happen to drag America out to war right along with Israel and be destroyed because we're at the end. And this Iran war is the start of it for America and the end of it. They even said that they wanted to do 7 wars in 5 years, ending with Iran. So that means after this war, they might have plans to go for Russia or China, but really, Russia and China would be cut off if Iran fell. You know, so this is the last war that they need to fight, and it's not going so well for America, and that's because the Mosai Yahweh Bashmial Shah is working, right? And it's at the end. We're at the end. This is Jeremiah 15:22. It says, "A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations?" And that's what's happening. So far right now, if America was to stop the war with Iran, they control no power over in the Middle East anymore, right? Even NATO, don't want to cooperate with them. Even Canada is fighting against America, right? And Russia and China and the BRICS nations are growing, right? People are looking to them for help, oil, resources and things like that. In America, that once great nation is crumbling, real time. That's why they're in a desperate situation to try to save themselves. It says again, Jeremiah 15:22, "A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? It says, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken for Babylon, and thou was not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. The Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai hath opened his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans." And ultimately, it's going to end with nuclear missiles being shot, with the forces of Russia, entering into the battle. All right. It's been said plenty of times that Russia and China will not allow Iran to fall. And they Russia and China, or, I heard it from Russia mainly, Russia is waiting on the call from Iran. Basically, if you need help, let me know. Recently, Russia flew one of its military jets in there. I believe it's for an escape if things got too bad, just in case. supposed to be like some high tech military aircraft that can withstand certain things. You know, kind of like when Syria fell, and the guy that was over Syria left and he fled to Russia. So I'm thinking it'd be probably like this a similar type of situation. Maybe we'll have to wait and see. All right, but this America is losing. You know, Iran doesn't seem to even need that plane that Russia gave them. All right, and now you know that they're losing. They're in this snare, in this trap. They're desperately fighting. You know, to save whatever they can, because at the same time a new world order is happening, a reset is happening, right? Entering into this reset, America is on a bad field. They don't hold a stake or a share, right? They don't control nothing. They have Venezuela, all right, the oil in Venezuela they have, but I heard they having complications with that, as in it's a type of oil, right? It needs equipment to refine it, whatever the case may be. And what this dude here is going to talk about real quick, Pepe Escobar, is that this is an energy war, right? This is an oil war. This is a control of territory war, right? And it makes sense because they're coming into this new world order, and they're fighting for who controls what. That's why Israel wants the Greater Israel Project. They want to control Iran and that whole area and have that control over the Middle East in that region, right? To have some type of power in the new world order.
And he doesn't even know what this war is about to start with. And of course, he can never recognize, especially in public.
And totally out of his field.
Absolutely. And he doesn't even know what this war is about to start with. And of course, he can never recognize, especially in public, that this war was never about the Iranian nuclear dossier. This is an oil choke point war. This is a
right. And remember, Job 9:24 says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Remember, it was the small hatters that dragged America into this war. All right, for whatever reason they wanted to control the land. Now, like I just said, they wanted to control the land for the resources, right? For the territory, for the energy, for the oil, so they can have themselves be set up coming to this this new world order.
An energy war. This is a war to control energy in petrodollars. This is a war to save the petrodollar in West Asia. This is a war to strangulate, isolate, and eventually conquer Iran. This is a war against the Iran-Russia-China strategic partnership, the interlocked strategic partnerships. It's a war against BRICS. It's a war against the global south. It's a war against three civilization states. We are redoing Eurasia in the image of civilization states, and of course, trade and good relations and indivisibility of security for everyone.
This is too much. Is it fair to say that the Kremlin and Beijing would never permit the U.S. and Israel to topple Iran, and the Americans apparently don't understand that?
No, they don't. They don't, because they don't understand this very complex process of integration of Eurasia. They don't understand the direct connection between the proxy war in Ukraine and the war against Iran. They don't understand how Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran are always talking about how they need to keep the U.S. away from Eurasia for good.
And that's a good point. As you watch what's happening, Iran is getting information from Russia and China, targeting information to stop America, because for them, this is where they need to stop America. Iran is already doing a great job at stopping, America. So Russia and China are not stupid. They understand and know that, eventually America will come against them. So it ends here. All right. And, like I said, ultimately this will go to, World War III. Right. But America at the same time is trying to save themselves. But the scriptures say there will be no healing of thy wound. right? This is a trap that the Most High Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has set up for America. And then if I was going to continue, we've got Ezekiel 38, where Russia comes in and comes against, America eventually, and Israel, right? And even NATO, right? You go back 1 and 7, where it says the trusted friends, have deceived thee, and they plot against thee behind your back, roughly paraphrasing scriptures. All right. So that's what's happening here. Nahum 3 and 11 says, thou also shalt be drunken, thou shalt be hid, thou also shalt seek strength because of the enemy. We got Donald Trump now. He gave Saudi Arabia, I believe it was like F-35s, and now he's trying to give them nuclear weapons. That's him trying to find an enemy over there. And, really in the wrong place, because all those people around him, or around Saudi Arabia, are, trying to, get in with Iran, says all thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. The strongholds, all those military bases, they're useless. And again, it's good for Iran, it's good for Russia, it's good for China. Iran has destroyed all American bases over in the Middle East. They have nothing to go back to, right? They stop fighting now, they will have no power over there in the Middle East. And Russia and China can swoop in, and dig in, basically. Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour them, devour thy bars. So we're hearing things about America not having ammo, ammunition to even do this war. And every time I hear it, I still can't believe it, because it's like, how the hell do you plan a war, 7 wars in 5 years, and you got all these master plans, and now you're at the war, but you don't have the ammunition, and they say America does the shock and awe, where they come in and bomb you and want you to submit. They bomb your children and your schools and your hospitals and your leaders, and they just think you to bow down, right? But the scriptures say the weak are going to say they're strong in Joel, and that's exactly what's happening, and America's finding out that, they're in a trap. This is Joel 3:9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. Right, so that was Iran, being weak, but they're actually strong and prepared. They got mad missiles, making missiles as we speak, drones and all of that. Nahum 3 and 13, behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars. So they have nothing to protect themselves. The only thing they probably got now is small arms fire. The bullets for their M4s and what for ground invasion, if anything. It says, draw thee waters for the siege, fortify thy strongholds, go into clay and tread the mortar and make strong the brick. They're trying to get ready, America now, but it's too late. They're already in the trap, and they've been caught. There shall devour thee, the sword shall cut thee off, it shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm, make thyself many as the locust. Going into drafts, which is going to come, because most of the soldiers they're sending is going to die. All right. And like I said, they probably only have like the smaller ammunitions for the guns to send bodies over there. Hello? All right. Verse 16, it says, thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven. The cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. Thy crown are as the locusts, and thy captains as the great grasshoppers, which camp in the hedges in the cold day, but when the sun arises, they flee away, and the place is not known where they are. The military troops and the people flying away and leaving, you know, wherever the reason may be, they're leaving. You know, and a part of that is because they don't want to fight for Israel. You know, but at the same time, they're not fighting. You know, you don't have no captains and rulers, you know, to lead the people. These new troops. It says, thy shepherds slumber, O king of Syria, thy nobles shall dwell in the dust, thy people are scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathers them. You know, just in complete disarray. If you go over there, when you go over to that Middle East. All right, that's exactly what's gonna happen. It says, there is no healing of thy bruise, thy wound is grievous. All that hear the good thee shall clap their hands over thee, for upon whom have not thy wickedness passed continually. All right, so the wound that America has is no healing for it, right? They're not going to dig themselves out of the situation they're trying to dig themselves out of. You know, that's the point. It's over for them. All right, Lord willing, you edify from this lesson. Shalom to the hope of elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.